Anyways,
That was me. I started recording. Don't be shy
yeah,
though. I'll
that's
try and edit it
That's okay.
eventually.
eventually.
Before we get it on YouTube, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi, Holly. Thanks for joining.
Hi, I'm trying to get on my computer, but I can't make the connection, so I'm on the phone.
No
Yeah.
worries. You'll
As long
you'll get
as,
all the content just the
yeah,
same.
as long as you can hear.
Mhm. Just wait a few minutes to see if anyone else is joining.
Yeah.
Oh, we've
It's
got
only,
time.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
only 2 minutes to one. People jump on at the last minute.
I'll go ahead and share my PowerPoint real quick too to make sure all that's
Yeah. It's
up
working
and
great. Can see everything.
perfect.
Yeah. Perfect.
I'm going to grab my other screen so that I have two screens to work with.
Okay.
Allison, if you click on that little button that says present in team, there you go.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to get it so that my notes would be on the other screen, but that's okay.
Got it.
I have them written down too, so
No problem. We'll just give a couple more minutes for others to join and then we can dig in and get started. Tom, what do you think? Good time to start?
Yeah. Um, I was just writing some more stuff in the chat. I think we're good to get started.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, and thank you, League members, for joining us for our fourth meeting of the Lady Liberty League. L3 is a space where we can gather to gain verified quality information from experts in their field. Information that will empower us in our fight for liberty and a larger culture shift. We have here today our founders, myself, Laura Hudak, and Tom Early, and Tom, who also doubles up as our trusted moderator. As our speaker presents, we encourage you to please place your questions in the chat box, and our moderator will address them after the presentation. Today, we have Allesan Armstrong, who will be speaking on the signs and the impact of Christian nationalism. Allesan earned her Bachelor of Arts in History from Oklahoma City University in 2005, before going on to graduate from Oklahoma City University School of Law. She is licensed to practice law in both Ohio and Oklahoma. In January 2018, she joined the University of Akron School of Law as Assistant Director of Academic Success Programs and was later appointed to the director position in July of 2022. During law school, Allesan was actively involved in moot court and Phi Delta Phi, receiving both the Barry Apala Outstanding Graduate Award and the National Association of Women Lawyers Outstanding Law Student Award. She is also a member of the Order of Barristers, and she is deeply engaged in her community. Allesan serves on the Parma Board of Zoning Appeals and the Democratic Central Committee, where she and her family frequently volunteer for local, state, and national campaigns. She is also the treasurer for the Parma Democratic Party and coordinates the Andrew Boyko Scholarship. For several years, Allesan has been deeply interested in Christian nationalism, and she has devoted much time to studying its impact on the political system. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Allesan Armstrong. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you everybody for having me today and letting me get to talk about kind of one of my passion projects. First off, I'd just like to say that everything I'm talking about today is just my own personal opinion, based on the research that I've done, and is no way reflective of my employer's opinion in light of recent legislation. I just wanted to put that on the record very quickly. All right, so first and foremost, I wanted to say this is not an attack on Christianity itself. I have been a practicing Catholic since 2009. Before that, I was a Lutheran. So, you know, this is my own personal belief system. This is just us talking about the basics of the First Amendment, our freedom of religion, and the separation of church and state. So I wanted to quickly talk about some identifying characteristics of Christian nationalism. So the big part of this is that they believe that the U.S. is a Christian nation and should be governed by Christians and for Christians. They generally have an ends justify the means mentality in their pursuit of power. I think we saw that very clearly on January 6th, 2021, where they justified attacking the Capitol, attacking our Capitol Police, the violence that occurred on that day, because they thought that their leader was the appointed one. He is the one that God has chosen to be our president, and they thought that Congress and even Vice President Mike Pence at the time were the ones who were standing in the way of that. Leads into the belief that God has ordained their position. Mike Johnson recently came out on the record saying that he was the Speaker of the House because God put him there. They're generally historically social conservatives and now are leaning heavily into MAGA. Vocal opponents of abortion with no exceptions. There's of course a large spectrum of belief on abortion and what should be allowed and what should not be allowed. But generally, Christian nationalists think that abortion should not be allowed in any cases for any reason. And that, I think, is a very deep and whole other discussion that we could go into at a different time. They generally hold anti-immigration and anti-science views. We're seeing that a lot with the suspension of due process for even people just suspected of being immigrants. We've seen that people are being held without any type of bail, without any access to legal counsel, just because they happen to be on the street and look like they might be an immigrant, or they wrote an opinion piece in their student newspaper and were just pulled off of the street by ununiformed police officers. Generally, you're going to see that Christian nationalists are in a patriarchal society. You see this very clearly actually in the women that they choose to hold power. If you look back to Katie Britt's response to, I believe it was Biden's final State of the Union, she's sitting in the kitchen giving this response with that very soft baby voice. So that feminine register is very important to them, and their upholding of their patriarchal views. And a lot of them are believers in the prosperity gospel. If you have ever followed Dave Ramsey, I think he is the biggest purveyor of the prosperity gospel, where if you believe in God and give God your 10%, he's going to bless you. And, if that's what you believe and you want to do that, that's definitely an option for you. But to say that people are in poverty because they don't believe in God or because they're not donating enough to church, I think is ignoring a lot of systematic issues that are actually what are keeping people in poverty. All right, I posted this here as a practical matter. Which version of Christianity are we using when we're claiming that Christianity needs to be the dominant religion, when we think that that is what everybody should believe in? I'm not sure if it'll pull up the link or not. Is that showing for you guys? Okay, perfect. So I just pulled this up just kind of to demonstrate.
It's not showing, just in case. Sorry, Allison.
Oh, no, it's okay. Just to demonstrate the wide variety of Christianity, of different denominations. So which one of these are we going to choose if we're going to have this Christian nation? Which one should be the dominant religion?
Allison, the link is showing. I don't know if you were intending on showing the actual website.
Oh, I did try to show the website. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You might just have to
huge...
share that new screen that popped up on your end.
Oh, okay.
It'll give you an option to share that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. It doesn't want me to change the screens here. It's okay. We can send the link around. It's just a listing of, there's hundreds of different denominations. And of course you've got, Catholicism and Orthodoxy and other evangelicals. So just a huge number of different Christian religions, and it would be difficult to say this is the one that we should pick. All right, so how do we get to where we are? The right wing has been playing the long game, kind of started with the era of Reagan and maybe even a little bit before. If you watched the Shiny Happy People documentary on the Duggar family on Amazon Prime, you might have learned a little bit about Generation Joshua. This is where they have been systematically infiltrating institutions of higher learning and positions of power. You see that Josh Duggar was a part of Focus on the Family, their kind of political arm. They've been, putting people through school, even having their own unaccredited law schools. The IBLP has had their own sort of unaccredited law school where students went on to become paralegals and work for senators. So basically, they've just been kind of moving these chess pieces into place for a very long time. Stacking the Supreme Court, we saw at the end of Obama's term, when he tried to appoint Merrick Garland, Mitch McConnell said, no, we're too close to the next president. You can't do this. But then when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died within weeks of Biden coming into power, they rushed through Amy Coney Barrett's nomination and got her on the Supreme Court. So in doing that, they very much solidified their 6-3 advantage on the Supreme Court, their ideological advantage. A little bit of it was just kind of waiting for a charismatic leader. I can't for the life of me figure out why Donald Trump is that charismatic leader for them, but he has proven to be. And having him as kind of the figurehead over all of this has been, I think, vital to their power. And then the rise of Christian influencers. We saw this first a lot on the radio. And then we started seeing, of course, television come up. We've got, I did mention the Duggars, but normalizing the lifestyle, that quiverful lifestyle, that evangelical Christian nationalism point of view on TLC, I think played a big part in bringing about this Christian nationalism in the government. And of course, the internet, there's a ton of different internet influencers. Right here in Ohio, is an influencer named Jill Rodriguez, where she believes all of these same things. Paul and Morgan are very famous content creators who believe in Christian nationalism. There's a ton of them on Instagram and TikTok. The Traditional Wives, the Ballerina Farms folks, a lot of them are normalizing this attitude. So here is kind of what I've organized as their plan of attack. Now they've got all of these branches, right? They've got control of the executive, the legislative, and the judicial on a federal level and in many of the states. So their plan for the executive branch, all this again is, of course, laid out in Project 2025, which Donald Trump knew nothing about, but has managed to implement 66% of it or so. The executive branch, through the use of executive orders and DOGE, will then attack the administrative state, sometimes colloquially referred to as the fourth branch of the government, where we've got the administrative offices that are authorized by Congress and generally overseen by the executive branch. They have managed to get a hold in many of the legislative branches, including the state of Ohio, through gerrymandering and voter suppression. We saw a lot of that take hold. Of course, we've all seen Jim Jordan's district, even our own district in Cuyahoga County. We share the same representative with Medina County and Holmes County, which is a kind of an unusual configuration for planning out those districts. We saw the new voter ID law go into effect, and I saw Cleveland.com had reported that there were 7,000 ballots that were thrown out because they could not verify the identity of the voters. So we see a lot of voter suppression going on in the state of Ohio and throughout the nation as well. And again, the judicial branch, they have stacked the Supreme Court in their favor, 6-3. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit to just talk about the basics of the First Amendment as it pertains to the freedom of religion clause. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That did leave us with a little bit of an interpretation issue going forward. Are we talking about establishment of religion as in a big E or a little e? And what I mean by that is, are we talking about we are not going to have a Church of America, like there's a Church of England and there's a Church of Scotland? Or is it the little e establishment? Is this America not endorsing religion in any way? As we often say, we have that wall of separation between church and state. So many people who on the Christian nationalist side say this is a big E establishment. They just mean that we're not going to have a Church of America, but it does not mean that we can't bring religion into our public life, into our government. You see here this very historically accurate representation of James Madison and Thomas Jefferson here. In 1802, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to the Danbury Baptist Associates declaring that the First Amendment built a wall of separation between church and state. And along with James Madison, disagreed that there should be an established religion in America, but also did not believe that there should be an entanglement between religion and the government. And I'm pulling up my notes here. I pulled a quote from James Madison's letter here.
Allison, you seem to have shared something else.
Oh, do I have okay, sorry. I was just trying to pull up my notes.
It's like a quarter of your screen. It's doing something weird.
Yeah, it's not playing nice. Sorry. I actually exited the PowerPoint. Sorry, now I got to reopen that. So in Madison's memorial and remonstrance against religious assessments, he states, because we hold it for a fundamental and undeniable truth that religion or the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it can be directed only by reason and conviction, not by force or violence. The religion then of every man must be led to the conviction and conscience of every man, and it is right that every man to exercise it as these may dictate. So what Madison is saying here is that religion needs to be a personal thing and that everybody should get to dictate it, their religion in the way they choose. Sorry, I'm going to reshare this PowerPoint, maybe. All right, and then I did want to go and talk about some of the case law that has interpreted the First Amendment over the years. It took a while for us to really get a lot.
I'm going to interrupt. It's okay. Just hit your present in Teams button on the top right-hand corner of your screen so that we get the full view and not all of your thumbnails that are on the side. It's a gray box next to share. It says present in Teams.
Yeah, that's going to open up my Teams account though. I think it's because it's sharing the wrong screen. Does that look better?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
You think I would have gotten used to this after?
It's okay. You know what? You're a lawyer who has a passion for the conversation of Christian nationalism. You are not a tech person, so we forgive you everything.
Thank you very much.
And you have a beautiful PowerPoint, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we didn't really start having a lot of cases interpreting the First Amendment, the religious clause in the First Amendment, until 1971's Lemon v. Kurtzman. And basically, this case was they were providing state funding for non-public, non-secular schools, and it went up to the Supreme Court asking whether or not this violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Think, for example, that the state can purchase a U.S. history book for use in a religious school, but can't purchase a religious workbook. It has to be for a secular purpose. So they came up with this three-pronged test, which was called the Lemon test, where anything that the state funded had to have a secular legislative purpose, could neither advance nor inhibit religion, and avoids excessive entanglement with government entanglement with religion. This was overturned in 2022 in the Kennedy versus Bremerton case. As has been a pattern with the Supreme Court over the last couple of years, they're just kind of killing the stuff that we've used for 40, 30 years and leaving us with nothing. So we don't currently really have a test for whether or not what the government is doing with a religious program or something like that will violate the First Amendment. There was a series of 10 Commandments cases. I think the most important one is Stone v. Graham, where there was a Kentucky statute requiring that the 10 Commandments be posted in each classroom. They did find that that was a violation because the requirement had no secular purpose and was plainly religious in nature. But recently, I believe the statute was signed in 2023 or 2024. Louisiana government, Jeff Landry, signed HB 71, a law requiring the 10 Commandments to be displayed in schools. He even gives a size. It must be 11 by 14 inches. And it has to be displayed by any school that accepts state money, including institutions of higher education. This has gone through the courts up through the Fifth Circuit. So this particular statute has been stayed. I don't know precisely where it is in the courts right now. I'm not sure if they've appealed it or not, but it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on, because I think this would then start the ball rolling for a lot of other things. For instance, the state of Florida was attempting to put volunteer religious counselors into the schools. And of course, my adopted state of Oklahoma has a superintendent who is a Christian nationalist, and he was attempting to purchase with state funds Bibles for every single class. And one of the requirements for the Bible was that it also contained the founding documents, which is very strange because there's only one Bible I know of that contains the founding documents. So this wasn't at all a way to launder money to a certain Bible salesman who has a Bible with the founding documents included in it and can be yours for the low price of $59.99, even though the Bible is available for free on apps and websites. We had the case of Lynch v. Donnelly, which asks whether the inclusion of a nativity scene in the city's display violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The court found 5-4 that there was no violation, saying that the creche was a historical display, and basically said that as long as you've got other holiday things around it, as long as you're fair, for instance, if you've got a menorah in your display or you've got Santa Claus, as long as you're kind of giving everybody a fair shake, that this was going to be okay. Coming back to the state of Ohio, I want to say this case was decided in 2000, where it asked if the Ohio voucher program violated the Establishment Clause. We know now, of course, that the voucher program has expanded in its scope. But at the time, it was much more limited in who could receive it and where they could go. The Ohio program, according to the court, is entirely neutral with respect to religion. It provides benefits directly to a wide spectrum of individuals, defined only by financial need and residence in a particular school district. It permits such individuals to exercise genuine choice among options: public, private, secular, and religious. So basically, this is saying, because we're leaving the choice of school in the hands of the parents and not mandating that anybody go to a religious school, that they ruled that the voucher program was constitutional. So I wanted to kind of just give a little bit of a call to action. It's kind of difficult, of course, to fight through this, right? Because perceived slights towards Christian nationalism, as I said in my opening, can be perceived as an attack against Christianity itself, which of course is not what we're doing here. But we can continue to educate ourselves and others. We can continue to advocate for separation of church and state. And we can continue to vote in each and every election. And of course, volunteer on campaigns, and all, do all the things that we know we need to do. Great.
Allison, thank you for that presentation. There is so much information in there. It really covers over 2 centuries of information. I'd love to start back at the beginning where we mentioned the First Amendment and the establishment. Can we speak to what the goals were of creating that First Amendment and the documentation around whether or not the founding fathers were Christian nationalists? Is that the goal all along? How did we start there? How do we start here? And how do we get up here where it's become an issue?
Yeah, to my knowledge, none of the founding fathers were Christian nationalists. I am not a scholar of early American history. I know that my undergraduate degree is in history, but I actually focused on ancient civilizations and not modern history. But I went through religious education for 12 years, and my understanding was always that the founders were either, some of them were religious, some of them were Baptist or Presbyterian. Many of them were deists, which basically means that they believe that God kind of wound the clock, got the cogs of the universe going, and then peaced out. So I don't think the founders intended for religion to become a part of our government, especially after, everything that happened in Europe between the Catholic Church and going back to Henry VIII and dividing from the church so that he could divorce his wife and marry, upgrade to a newer model. All of these things, they were trying to, I believe, avoid all of that. But unfortunately, much like the Second Amendment, through the years, the interpretation it's not even changed. I think it's just become twisted and warped. And then they're using the First Amendment, much like they do some biblical passages, right? They're using pieces and parts of things and twisting them in a way that fit their narrative without really looking at the historical context.
I'm glad you mentioned that over the years, things have changed. You brought up case law, and I thought for a long while we had a trend that kind of more firmly established a separation of church and state all the way maybe through Brown versus Board of Education, where we really isolated that. And then we started to see this swing back towards, the freedom of being able to practice your religion, like publicly. And we've seen court cases allowing, the 10 Commandments, like back in public places, as long as it's equal, as long as you have, displays. Can we talk about that transition and who or what is behind maybe what you've mentioned, stacking the Supreme Court? We've put Supreme Court justices that have very influential roles into these positions to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I'm sure almost everybody on here is a follower of Heather Cox Richardson. So most of what I know about this topic, I've learned from her. And it seems like up through the 50s and, going into the civil rights era, we had this kind of agreement, this social agreement that we are going to continue to make progress towards equality for all. And at some point, the rubber band snapped back, right? We were stretching the limits of progress, and then boom, it got to be too much. So we see now where we don't have kind of this gentleman's agreement anymore, where we decided we were going to continue to make progress in equity for women, equity for racial minorities, LGBTQ rights. Now we're back to kind of, I don't know if we're back at square one, but we're definitely maybe at square 2 or 3, where we're having to grab those rights back.
I'm glad you brought up some of those rights, specifically like with the LGBTQ community and reproductive rights. Are these changes in our national discussion a direct result of Christian nationalism, or are there other factors in play? And then what is the end goal of Christian nationalism by eliminating some of these rights?
So can you give me the first question again? Sorry.
Yeah, you brought up some of the rights that are being restricted. Is this a direct result of Christian nationalism when we talk about reproductive rights being restricted or LGBTQ policies being rolled back? We saw Obergefell in 2015, right, establish a national right for gay marriage, but now we're talking now about rolling it back, and we have that 6-3 imbalance on the Supreme Court. Are all of those justices also Christian nationalists? Are we looking to roll back as much as possible because of these policies?
Yeah, I think so. If you go kind of deep diving into this, Mike Johnson, and I think Amy Coney Barrett too, even though she's Catholic, she kind of falls into this hastening the second coming of Christ thought. So everything that they do is trying to get us to that point. As far as the court cases, when Roe v. Wade fell in the Dobbs case, part of what Justice Thomas wrote in his dissent was, we based this case on this right to privacy that doesn't actually exist in the Constitution. And there's a series of other cases that were also based on those rights, including Obergefell and Loving v. Virginia, which is the case that established that states could not restrict the right of people of different races to marry. So it was very interesting that Justice Thomas chose not to call that particular right into question, seeing as how he himself is in an interracial marriage. But he's calling all of these other rights into question. LGBTQ right to marry, the right of women to access contraception is in those. Lawrence v. Texas is in there, which is where you can't prosecute people for what they choose to do in a consenting sexual relationship. So all of these things, I think, are on the chopping block with that end goal. I hate to sound alarmist. I think that they're just trying to have forever power. Donald Trump said, "You won't have to vote for me again." And I think he means it. He thinks it's true.
It's weaponizing whatever they can for the ultimate goal of oppression and then subservient followers.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Chair, did you have a question? No, okay, all right. So Allison, are you saying that we'll see a rise in Christian nationalism through the 9th Amendment, where specific rights aren't enumerated to the federal government and they'll return to the states? Is that part of Project 2025?
the returning it to the states seems to be a kind of a temporary justification, right? We see this with, I believe it was Lindsey Graham who was trying to advocate for a national abortion ban. So they're saying we're sending these back to the states. We're saying because the Ninth Amendment is those not specifically enumerated to the federal government are left up to the states. For me, as an attorney and as a person, I'm kind of sick and tired of everything being dictated by what a bunch of dead white guys said 260, 70 years ago. Everything that they said is not applicable today, which is why the Constitution was built to be amended, which is why we set up the judicial system the way we did way back with Marbury v. Madison, where we said it is up to the courts to interpret the Constitution and legislation. So the way the whole system was set up is to be able to evolve and change with the times. Even if you think, for instance, of the Second Amendment, when they wrote the Second Amendment, they couldn't possibly have had an AR in mind, right? Do you have the right to bear arms? Of course, they always, conveniently forget about the well-regulated militia part, but it's the same kind of things. This world that we live in today is not the same as the world that the founders lived in when everything was set into place. So we've got to be able to either read into the Constitution or legislate things that are applicable to our lives today.
Do you happen to know the biggest players in the advocacy of Christian nationalism, maybe on a federal stage or a state stage, and that we should be aware of when we see new policies introduced and who that source is from?
Yeah, we're kind of chock full of them right now. I know I've mentioned Mike Johnson a couple of times. He is, I think, one of kind of the biggest players in the game. Mike Huckabee and his daughter, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, are very big into this. You saw them coming to the defense of the Duggars when Josh Duggar was arrested for his crimes. So they will defend to their own detriment people who they believe should be in power. There's a lot of kind of big Christian groups. I think I mentioned Generation Joshua. That's an actual group. You can look on their website. It is kind of a scary ride. I'll kind of warn you of that now. The IBLP is still a big influence. And locally,
can you explain, what did you say, the IDLP?
Oh, I'm sorry, the IBLP, the Institute and Basic Learning Principles. So that it was a hugely influential group, especially in the 80s. They have pioneered the Quiverful movement, which is why you see families like the Duggars have 19 children. They think that they are raising the next generation of warriors for God. So by producing many children, they are ensuring that they get those people in place. Locally, sorry, go ahead. Locally, it's a little bit harder to determine because unless they specifically come out and say something, I don't want to accuse anybody of having a Christian nationalist agenda.
That's fair. I was thinking of some of these advocacy groups. I posted in the chat, but the Family Research Council, the Alliance Defending Freedom, and some others there. I understand that they financially back candidates and policies for different groups that, we've seen some of these policies go through in states like Iowa. And of course, we've also seen them back candidates and representatives like Mike Johnson and Lindsey Graham when they are doing things like this. So I just wondered if there were others in there or any other groups you look out for when you see this is sponsored by so-and-so group. This raises some alarms for you.
Yeah, definitely Heritage Foundation. So they are kind of the lead on Project 2025, and they have partnered with 20 to 30 other organizations. So you can actually look on their website and see who else participated in the making of that document. So basically, anybody who wrote any part of that document. We know that VP Mike Pence wrote the foreword to Russell Vaught's book. The main author of the project is now the head of the Office of Budget and Management. So again, this is just putting these players into the positions where they can, I'll call it, do the most damage. I know they say that they're saving the government or whatever, but I think at that point they're doing a lot of damage. And Mike Johnson actually worked for the Alliance Defending Freedom. He was one of their attorneys who helped get the Ark encounter in Kentucky up and running.
I heard the Ark encounter might have gone bankrupt. Is that true? Does anyone know?
I heard it got
Okay.
flooded. I'm not sure. The more you dig into this, the more it becomes like the guy in Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the board and all the strings, and like it is so interconnected that I can't organize it on a PowerPoint. If I had my whiteboard, I could maybe do a little better.
Robin brought up in the chat, curious about your thoughts on how the COVID shutdowns enraged Christian nationalists specifically. And I'm wondering if that was just an in for Christian nationalists to support the narrative that government is overbearing and they shouldn't be so involved in life, or if there's a specific goal by allowing this type of religious freedom, especially when it comes to the growing discussions around vaccine exemptions as we see measles continue to outbreak across the United States.
It's very contradictory, isn't it? They want this kind of government get out of my life, but then at the same time, they're using the government to shut down other belief systems, right? I don't think the COVID shutdowns were the main part of it. I mean, we saw the MAGA movement really gaining steam well before that, in 2015 when he came down that hideous golden escalator. It just kind of snowballed. So I don't know if the COVID shutdowns had been that effective. I think he might have won in 2020, but it seems like there were more people who were interested in getting him out of office than who were mad about the religious shutdowns. Although you see now they're blaming Biden for all of the shutdowns, even though he wasn't president until 2021, when everything was, we were masked up, but we were kind of back and running. The anti-vax movement, I think, is very much a part of this. It ironically kind of started in very liberal, crunchy circles. So you've got a big community of people in like Oregon who aren't vaccinated. And it kind of made its way over to the right, to these kind of fundamentalist influencers. Carissa Collins is a very famous one. It's not even just anti-vax, it's anti-medical, where they're having home births and they don't want to take their children to the doctor even for regular checkups. They're not having their eyes checked. They're not getting, regular dental appointments, things like that. So yeah, sorry, I kind of got a little off track there, but I don't know how much of an effect the shutting down religious institutions had. It made a lot of people mad about a lot of things, but on a macro level, I'm not sure.
It was a time I like to also forget about sometimes. It was difficult for a lot of us, for sure. Dolores asked specifically, when it comes to DEI, we're looking to roll things back to a pre-civil rights era. And I do think this does tie in a lot to Christian nationalism and some of those values that they have. On your last slide, you did mention some ways that we can combat this. Can we review those again? And do you have any other suggestions, either as citizens or elected officials?
Yeah, well, so most of my suggestions were kind of your basic advocacy, right? You're talking on a micro level, talking with your neighbors, talking with your friends, kind of discussing some of these issues. I have people that I love who voted for this guy. It's hard. Thankfully, none of like my immediate family did, but other people. So just kind of opening the door to having discussions. I think now more than ever, people are kind of seeing that these policies are not doing well for anybody. I agree. They are trying to roll back everything that was accomplished during the civil rights era. And since then, DEI seems to be like 2025, 2024's CRT, right? It's just a 3-letter acronym that they can hang on to, that they can just say, this is bad, without really knowing the context of the concept. So one thing that I challenge them is, which of these 3 things do you object to? Is it the diversity? Is it the equity? Is it the inclusion? Are you mad that we've got to have wheelchair ramps in public accessible buildings? Are you mad that students have IEPs and 504 plans so that they can function in a regular classroom? If any of you are on the Parma Parents for Education page, there's one particular person who says we need to get rid of 504 plans and IEPs because they're not fair. And as someone who has a child on a 504 plan, I'm just like, what about my child being allowed to have an education is not fair to your children? So that's kind of like challenging them on the concept and saying, what exactly about this do you disagree with? They talk about the meritocracy. They talk about how we only want to hire people who are best, but people of color, women of color especially, have had to work so much harder than other people to get to the positions where they're at because because of this type of attitude, right? Where they say DEI means didn't earn it. So they're working harder and becoming even more accomplished, and that kind of attacks the mediocre, right? An extraordinary person is going to make a non-extraordinary person feel less than. So I think we've got to continuously advocate, keep on calling, keep on with the citizens initiatives. You saw how successful that was, getting issue 1, passed, then shooting down the other issue 1 and then passing the next issue 1. How successful that was. I think that's kind of our play, especially for the state of Ohio. I think that we could get enough people behind the SB1, trying to get something to get that overturned by Citizens Initiative. So I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of organizing.
If I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like voting is always our number one way to help prevent this. But also, I really love at least in the state of Ohio, we do have citizen-led initiatives still. Are there other groups you know of or anything we can do to help get that off the ground?
I was researching that. I have not found anybody who's doing the actual work on that yet. I know Red Wine and Blue is starting to collect stories to file a lawsuit. I don't have as much faith in the Ohio judiciary as I do in the people of Ohio. So my thought is that we need to just start inundating them with it, right? Every election, we need to figure out what we need to fight for the most and get that into play with citizens initiatives.
I love it. Lindsay asked if you believe this agenda from Christian Nationalism will also impact mental health care. I know we talked a little bit about anti-vaccines and the physical medical care, but what about mental health care?
I mean, if you've listened to Robert F. Kennedy, all of us who are on any type of ADHD medication or anti-anxiety medication just need to be sent to a farm to get healthy. And I'm not entirely sure what kind of paid leave we have available for that. I don't know what kind of schooling's available for the children who will go work on these farms. So yeah, I think there's definitely an attack on the mental health care, especially as it comes to folks who are trans, people who are, going through treatment for that. That's considered, gender affirming care is considered mental health treatment, and that is 1000% under attack. So yeah, I think it's definitely something to continue to advocate for and watch out for, and keep making those calls and writing those letters. And Governor DeWine has a fax machine, so anybody has a fax machine.
I do find
those
it
faxes.
interesting to have Robert F. Kennedy have a strong opinion on mental health care when he had worms in his brain, just as a commentary. But I think I saw Holly with her hand up for a minute. Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. The subject was Christian nationalism, and I think it's even more rigorous than that, and far beyond what we are anticipating. It's I have been involved with some evangelicals lately, Christian evangelicals. They're all for the end times, and they are um, going along with the slaughter of Palestinians because it's just too bad. Um, the Bible says that Israel, the land of the Holy Land, belongs to Israel. Of course, that's the Israel of the Bible, not the Israel land today, but they don't make that distinction. But anyway, it's very important, I think, for us to pay attention to the development of the time from the moral majority in this country and Francis Graham, Reverend Billy Graham, I mean, because he was the one that sided with Reagan. It was the first Christian minister that went publicly political and aligned himself to the Republicans. And that's how the Republicans grew. And that's why Trump had people praying over him. And the reason I'm saying some of this is because I've been studying and working with some people that have been trying to explain, you don't know what you don't know the devil in the room. The devil in the room is, like millions of people who do anything that Christ, Donald Trump, the golden calf, says to do. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter how many people are slaughtered. And it's shocking. It's very shocking to me to hear those stories. All this other stuff that we're talking about, I think like, well, how many people are we fighting? And I don't even know them all. I mean, who walks around saying they're Christian evangelicals? And evangelicals means I'm out to convert. And I'm going to have it this way. So anyway, I throw that in because you went into the legal dimensions and the history, which I found very informative. But I also have this like a thing in the back of my head saying like it's a big deal. Christian evangelicalism won the election. Period.
Thanks, Holly, for that input. We definitely do see that these policies not only impact situations here at home, but also abroad, and how we've decided to intervene or not intervene with global conflict. So super important how we vote here because it has a global impact. And I'm really grateful that you called that out.
And look at the protesting on campus. It's here. It is here. Unfortunately.
We all see it for sure. I think that's going to wrap up our conversation, our question and answers. Thank you, Allison, for being here. I'm going to toss it back over to Sue to wrap it up and tell us about our next speaker in 2 weeks.
Great. I'm going to mirror what Tom said. Thank you so much, Allison, for a deeper dive into, there's just so much going on and so much for all of us to stay abreast of in with verified, qualified information, that it is helpful to have people that have an expertise and a passion like you come and share your knowledge with us. So when we go out into our space, we can meet people with well-informed, verified information so that we can create that larger culture shift that will benefit all of us. Next week, we are going to have a return visit from Professor C.J. Peters from the Akron School of Law. If you were on for his first call, he did dig into First Amendment rights and as it relates to constitutional law and everything that's going on today. It was extremely informative. We received a lot of positive feedback. So he is returning on the 13th. We have next week off. He's returning on the 13th to talk about the separation of powers and the importance of that under the Constitution and the original intent of the founding fathers and what has allowed our great country to last for almost 250 years. Remember to look in your emails for the links and for the newsletters. If you haven't signed up yet for the emails, then please contact one of us to do so that you don't miss future meetings. And I do want to just point out too, we have Mayor Michael Brennan on the call today, and he is going to be doing a discussion with us sometime in May too on running a municipality and some of those complexities. So I'm very happy that you joined us today, Mayor Brennan, and I am eager for you to share your experience and wisdom with this group as well.
Thank you, Sue. I look forward to that opportunity too.
Great, thank you. Yes, and I
Excellent
know
presentation today too.
Thank you. I agree. Allison is definitely passionate and knowledgeable. Do any of the other founders, Laura, do you have any comments or do you want to add anything to what I had closed on?
I just want to thank Allison again. I mean, thank you for your passion on this topic, all the research you're doing. Allison mentioned Heather Cox Richardson. I follow her faithfully every single day and have been since since she started writing, which was at the time of the first Trump administration. And I've learned, as Allison stated, I've learned a great deal from her as well. So I think that's very helpful in terms of kind of next steps, things that people can do. I think she's a very important voice during this time. And I know people keep asking the question, kind of what's the end game? I think, Tom, you were asking that question. And Allison stated this as well. I just keep going back to, if you dig into Project 2025, you see all of this stuff there. And that's exact. And Allison said 66% of it. I'm not sure where you got that number from, but it's fascinating to me to hear you say that.
There's a Project 2025 tracker.
There you go. So that this is exactly what we're saying. And if you were following the campaign, people should have known this is what was going to happen.
We could include that link to the tracker in our next newsletter too. And I think an immediate call to action would be anyone who's still on the call with us, please bring a friend to the next call. As we grow this coalition, we hope to create a movement. We are going to have some in-person opportunities coming up, hopefully in the summer months. And we would really like to have good support of our, like I said, verified quality expert speakers. I also do want to point out that Dolores Gray, who is state school board member, and Jerry Billups, who is Cleveland school board member, they are on this call too. And I know that they really align with and appreciate how you covered some of those issues that involve education.
I think that'll wrap it for everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll meet again in 2 weeks. Keep an eye out for our newsletter, and I hope you have a great Sunday afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see so many of you.